Greg, thank you so much for being with us here today at Photo Plus Expo and for your time. So we'll start off with the interview. So you've been with Bernstein and Drewley for
20 plus years.
20 plus years now,
Yeah.
and managing the careers of different photographers.
Totally.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of the experiences that you've had and maybe some common pitfalls that you see with photographers building their careers?
I think most photographers are not prepared for the business portion of what we do. Sometimes they tend to focus too much on the creativity,
Sure.
but that's really sort of maybe 50% of what their business is about. They really have to understand business practices, insurance, negotiation, I mean, all those tough things that, someone like myself, an agent, sort of helps them out with.
Having all that experience past 20 years, what are some changes that you've seen within the industry throughout that time?
I think that it's a lot more difficult for the actual sell at the moment and the actual purchase from the sell. I mean, a photographer and myself, we have to really work hard on our tools in terms of creative call, asking the right questions, doing a little bit of sell at that time. There's a lot more paperwork now, NDAs, contracts, et cetera,
Sure.
and now photographers are, required to do a treatment when they turn in a bid. So I think that's certainly changed in terms of being part of their toolkit. I think that most photographers these days must have some sort of motion as part of their toolkit as well. I'd say that probably 90% of any project that I do is a motion print component,
Sure.
whether motion's driving the bus or print's driving the bus. I think that also what has changed is the clients have changed. I think it's moving away more and more from large advertising agencies to smaller firms, PR firms, digital agencies, and clients direct.
Sure. And what are some of the ways in which clients are using the images? How is that changing? I know, of course, with social media, we're seeing more snippets and things like that.
I
How about from
think
your
that,
perspective?
it's flattening out across the board. I think most of the time they don't really know what they want to use them for. They just want to do an asset grab.
Okay.
And those can be used anything from webisodes if it's motion, or any other social media platforms, or digital advertising. I think traditional print advertising, years ago we used to talk about having like a print campaign, and we'd shoot like 5 hero shots over the period of 5 days. It just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's mostly library shoots. I mean, it's sort of what we call pictures by the pound, quite frankly. I mean, not to be vulgar about it, but I mean, sometimes it is.
Excellent. So how about moving forward? What sort of changes do you anticipate in the future of photography?
Again, I think that there's going to be a lot more combos of print and motion, and how photographers are able to adapt for that in terms of how they set up their day. I think that there's going to be a lot more clients direct. The middleman is going to be cut out. There's not going to be this traditional advertising agency model. And I also think that, and we've seen rumblings of this already, is that usage is going to go away. It's going to be very akin to how you work in TVC, where there's a flat number, that's what it is, it's a buyout, and you're out.
Interesting. Do you have any advice for photographers on how they can maybe prepare for some of these changes, or even in today's photography world? What are some things that you think photographers can learn from?
Education, communication,
Sure.
research.
Excellent. And now, do you have any personal experiences that you can talk about? Maybe a recent campaign that you've worked with, walking us through maybe how you worked with the client, worked with the photographer, and really brought the final product to fruition?
Well, I think akin to talking about how things are changing from the ask coming from a traditional advertising agency, they're coming from different places now. So I've worked 3 times over the past year with a can't named telecom client that we all know. Goes back to my thing about NDAs. But the first job was really through the advertising agency. Somehow we became favored photographers on the list.
Excellent.
The second job came through a digital agency who had actually never done a photo shoot before in their entire life. They were really only buying stock for this agency, for this client. So I had to spend a lot of time educating them, helping them formulate a shot list, helping them to put together a contract, before the shoot even took place. And then the same client called from a different agency, now their own in-house agency, for another job. Similar type of thing. I was sort of able to leverage my knowledge, not only of the client, but of contracts, usages, production, et cetera, to leverage that to our benefit.
Excellent. Wow. And we've been speaking to photographers so much about being successful in the industry is knowing about that back end of the business. So I'm sure having you on board is truly an asset and a help for a lot of your photographers.
I hope so. I mean, the way I look at it is that I can only give 100% of my 50%, and that's what I expect of my talent. We're in this together, and I'm certainly going to have strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to have counterbalance strengths and weaknesses, and that's how we sort of combine our energies and our resources to move forward.
Excellent. And now, just harking back a little bit to some of the advice that you have for photographers about education research, what are some actual tools that you think they can use within the industry?
I think really to tap into their network, to really talk to people about real life experiences. I was just in Chicago last week, and I think really some of my most successful meetings were really going out to dinner with clients and talking to them about shared experiences. I mean, on both sides of the fence, on the selling side and the buying side, we deal with the same issues. And to hear from folks what they're dealing with and how they deal with certain situations in our business, I think is really helpful.
Excellent. Yes, and networking is so key.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say if we were having this conversation years ago, I'd say, you have to read Adweek and read the New York Times advertising section and things like that. And I think that those things are not good tools anymore. I mean, Adweek is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I think really talking to your peers and talking to your clients about what's happening there in the industry is fruitful. Plus, it's a double-edged sword because you get to sell at the same time.
Do you see a lot of that networking happening here at Photo Plus?
Oh yeah, always. I've been participating for years, and definitely I just ran into a photographer I used to represent, and we caught up on things and did precisely what I'm just talking about. We talked about some war stories and what's going on, and he's in a different marketplace, so it was valuable.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Greg, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
My pleasure, and always happy to help.
Fantastic. Thank you.